This is Whitley Strieber, and this is Dreamland. You have reached the edge of the world. Today, we're talking to Robert Gleason. His new book, End of Days, now out in paperback. And Bob has been with us before. Last year in 2011, we talked about the end of days. We talked about 2012. And we talked about nuclear terrorism, and things have changed. They've gotten worse in one particular respect, and that is a couple of weeks ago, it was announced that Iran has doubled the number of centrifuges that it has processing nuclear fuel. This means that they are racing toward nuclear capability. What will happen? We're in a slowly deepening crisis with Iran. We could be in real trouble, but what's more frightening in a way is as time passes, we're just not getting this business of the containment of nuclear materials together. They're getting loose. Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Willie.
Bob's website is robertgleasonbooks.com, and he has The End of Days is an extraordinary book. I just want to add here, there's some incredible quotes from people who have read it. Former U.S. Secretary of Defense and Senator William Cohen said, Robert Gleason has been pondering the inevitability of a nuclear apocalypse for more than 20 years. His thoughts are now words. Once you enter this nightmare world, you'll race wildly through it to the nearest exit, only to realize that end of days is not a dream. It's just tomorrow, arriving a day early. Now, of course, you have a huge number of friends, but I have to say that getting a quote like that from a former U.S. Secretary of Defense and Senator is damned impressive. This must be quite a book.
Booklist said it was actually the best end of the world novel ever written. They said it was better than The Stand. That P.W. said it made The Road look by Cormac McCarthy look like a quiet stroll through the park.
Well, that's right. It does. I mean, I have to say that your authors are all jealous because you are not only a terrific editor, you're also a terrific writer, which, as you probably know, most editors really are not. No,
it's a rarity.
Yeah, it is a rarity. Most of them can't write their way out of a paper bag.
Sure.
But Bob, we have the situation in Iran. What is the likelihood that Israel could hit Iran just about any time now?
Oh, it would be very difficult. It would be a massively difficult operation for them. Probably only one country in the world could do it, and that'd be the United States. What Israel would have to do is that they would have to get. It's a 7-day operation, and they have to go through the corridor, the air corridor of a foreign country in order to get to Iran. And that there's 3 countries they could go through. Iraq, they could go, which is highly problematic. They could go through Saudi Arabia, and they could go through Turkey. And of all those countries, there would be. So let's say you're the host country, and you actually let the Israelis have that airspace for 7 days. You would have your whole country would turn into a firestorm. I mean, you'd have blood and fire in the streets. The leadership would probably be overthrown. The only country that would really be strong enough to endure that kind of uproar would probably be Saudi Arabia. And we know from WikiLeaks that the Saudis have indicated that they would seriously consider it, that they really, are petrified of the Iranians, being the Saudis are Sunnis and the Iranians are Shia. And as you know, there's been for thousands of years, there's been this kind of war between the two sects. And but assuming that, let's say the Saudis would let them have that airspace for 7 days, that they have to fuel in midair. The Israelis have 9 oil tankers to do the refueling. This assumes that 7-day aerial campaign, that assumes that those oil tankers aren't going to break down. And they're surprisingly fragile. In fact, all those aircraft are surprisingly fragile. They're in constant need of repairs. And so everything has to go perfectly for the Israelis. Otherwise, it's just done. It's half-baked. It's not a successful operation. An unsuccessful aerial campaign is worse than no aerial campaign at all. The sites, the nuclear sites that they have, Natanz and those, that they're very heavily bunkered and fortified. You know, there were bunkers in Iraq that we never cracked. That they were just too. It's much harder blowing up a bunker than we realized. That what you have to do is you send one bunker buster down, it leaves a crater. Then you have to hit that crater with another bunker buster. And then you have to hit that enlarged crater with another bunker buster. I mean, it is a kind of precision bombing that most nations aren't that good at. And, you know, also that the Iranians have, you know, they have considerable anti-aircraft capability. The Russians have been selling them stuff forever, the Chinese. That it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be a day at the beach. And it's highly problematic whether the Israelis could even pull it off. And now we hear all this loud talk, you know, like it's a slam dunk, and that's not a slam dunk at all. It's the United States, if in fact that a decision was made, and I wouldn't agree with it, but let's just say for argument's sake that a decision was made that we had to go in and take out Iran's nuclear program. We had all kinds of smoking gun evidence, not only that they're going to get nukes, but they're going to use them. So we got to go in and take it out. Probably the United States would have to go in and do it. It would probably be the Israelis probably couldn't do it. It's almost like the Israelis are putting out a disinformation campaign. It would be they could theoretically do it. It would be very difficult. And first of all, I don't see how any country is going to give them 7 days worth of airspace. Could you imagine those planes going up and down for 7 days? That the whole world would go insane. I mean, I just, you know, I find it very difficult to imagine. Second thing is that, okay, suppose the Israelis, you know, the way that the UN has structured nuclear power, a nuclear power reactor is a nuclear bomb fuel factory. There was a study done by Oak Ridge in 1977 that proved if you get the equipment from an old dairy or an old winery, in 6 months, unskilled terrorists can build a nuclear bomb fuel reprocessor. And in 1 month, if they have access to the nuclear waste and the nuclear power reactor, they will have reprocessed enough nuclear bomb fuel to build the Nagasaki bomb. And this is there was a study in 1998 at Los Alamos that indicated it was a lot easier than that. That was really doing it the hard way. So the problem is we made a decision through Atoms for Peace. In 1953, Eisenhower made it to proliferate nuclear power reactors all over the world. And the Eisenhower people would never acknowledge that they were proliferating nuclear bomb fuel factories. So in the end, once a nation got a hold of these reactors, if they decided they wanted to turn them into nuclear bomb fuel factories, there's really nothing, the United States, nothing the UN. The UN went along with Atoms for Peace, and they sanctioned it, and they helped to proliferate these bomb fuel factories. Once a nation decides to go down the nuclear bomb route, that there's almost nothing. They've got the factory there, and there's almost nothing you can do to stop it. So the tragedy of Iran is they are developing a nuclear bomb fuel factory, a nuclear bomb fuel capability, and they obeyed the rules. But you know they really worked the system, and that's the real tragedy of it. It's we created a system that allows them to do stuff like this, and there's almost nothing you can really do about it in the end. Now the bright side of it is that it'd be very difficult to use homemade bomb fuel to blow something up, because we can do forensics tests on it, and the tests are pretty accurate. And it would only be prudent for the Iranians to assume that we would test, the bomb residue. And you just fly over with a plane over the bomb site, and you pick up particles in the air, and you do a forensic test on them. It's real easy, and we would find out it's Iran. At which point, the nuclear nations of the world would turn Iran into a thermonuclear parking lot. And the other thing, too, is, if you have a nuclear bomb, you've got a target on your back.
Right.
And the Iranians...
Bob, we're going to have to take a little break right now.
Sure.
We'll be right back. For anyone interested in meditation, consider joining our meditation group. Go to Whitley's Journal to find out more. It's free, and subscribers get to participate in live chats about our experiences in the meditation group.
Imagine a tribe hidden deep in the forest, untouched by the modern world. Now imagine that they still possess the ancient magic that we have lost. They live in deep peace, in deep understanding. But then they're found. The modern world pours in on them from every side. Who will help? Who will save this miracle in the forest? Read Whitley Strieber's new ebook, The Secret of Orenda, and discover the magic. One reader says, I was captivated from the first pages. Others agree. Speaks to us on a level mere words cannot. I read it in 2 sittings, my face running with tears, my heart filled with joy. To learn more, go to orendabook.com. That's orendabook.com.
Orenda is once again available for the Kindle. We're talking to Robert Gleason. His new book, End of Days, one of the best books about that subject that has ever been written. And I read it. There's a quote from me on the book or somewhere. I know. Yeah. I don't remember where. In any case, it is a fabulous book. It's out in paperback right now. And Bob is back on Dreamland because things are happening in this world that fit the scenario of End of Days. Major General Sacknow, the U.S. Army Special Forces officers, co-author of Hope and Honor, says a devious, believable tale packed with action and atmosphere. Boy, is that ever true. And it's also a knowledgeable piece of work. In other words, it's accurate. This is the kind of thing that could actually happen. Now, before we left the air, Bob, and Bob's website is robertgleasonbooks.com. Before we left the air, Bob, you were talking about the actual truth, which is that it's not possible for Israel to successfully attack Iran and actually end its nuclear program militarily. We're probably the only ones that can do that, and there are a lot of other reasons too, among which they don't have the deep penetrating ordnance that we do, and so without us, they can't do it. Now,
well, we did sell them some bunker busters. They do have some. But
they do.
Just owning a bunker buster, it's incredibly. You have to keep hitting that same crater over and over and over again. And after all, we did that in Iraq, and there were a number of bunkers in Iraq that we couldn't break open. But it's really a high art form. And,
right.
They don't have the state-of-the-art bunker busters, but also it's not impossible for them to do it. It would just be phenomenally difficult. And also, I just don't see any country giving them 7 days worth of airspace. It's not impossible. The Saudis feared the Iranians enough. Yeah, they might, but I mean, there would be uprisings all over the Mideast, all over the
Mideast,
all over the
it
world.
Might actually strengthen Iran's hand.
Yeah, for 7 days and nights. The other thing too, that if Iran had a nuclear weapon, and let's say a nuke goes off in New York City or a nuke goes off in London or something, that Iran, whether they're guilty or not, Iran is at the top of everybody's hate list, and they would be the retaliating nation might just say, I'll never be positive who really did it. It's a terrorist nuke. They didn't really leave any signatures. We tested the bomb fuel. It came out of Russia. That doesn't help us. So I'm just going to take out all my enemies. And all my enemies that have nuclear weapons, they're going down. So if a country like Iran owns a nuke, they suddenly got a target on their back, and they better hope and pray no terrorist set off a nuke someplace because they're going to probably get retaliated against. It's only prudent for the Iranians to assume if a terrorist nuke goes off in the Western world, hits any of the NATO nations, that they're going to get retaliated against, and the retaliation will be nuclear. So it's a double-edged sword. Owning a nuclear weapon can discourage people from invading you. You know, Saddam Hussein had nukes. We never would have invaded Iraq. On the other hand, a nuke goes off someplace, and suddenly you've got a great big bullseye on your back.
Well, that's probably the reason that the Iranians are developing nukes, because they want a nuclear umbrella, but they can easily extend that nuclear umbrella over Hezbollah as well, sure, which is very much in their interest to do. Mm-hmm. So they may not be a nuclear belligerent. They may be using nuclear weapons for the same reason all the other countries who have them use them.
Yeah, it's, you know, one of the tragedies of all this is that we are, because of Atoms for Peace, because of the atomic energy nuclear aid, the UN Atomic Energy Agency, which was in charge of, which their mandate was to implement Atoms for Peace. They actually believe that every nation on Earth has an inalienable right to own a nuclear power reactor, even though it's a de facto nuclear bomb field factory. That is part of that agency's mandate, and it's straight out of Atoms for Peace. And the tragedy of that is that there's very little you can do to stop nations from developing a nuclear weapons capability. That I once asked our old friend Jerry Purnell. I once said to him, what kind of national strategy does America have? You know, if you reach the point where everybody in the world can get a nuclear weapon if they want one, and which is essentially the situation it is today. If you really want a nuke, you can get. As you know, I work with a lot of special forces authors, and I've asked a number of them if I gave you $50 million and some of your colleagues, you know, your comrades, were willing to do it, how long would it take you to steal enough nuclear bomb fuel for us to build a nuclear weapon? And not one of them has said more than 18 months. In fact, one of them said to me recently that he said that, you know, if you'd let me buy it, he said, instead of stealing it, he said, I could probably get it for you in less than 6 months. And, you know, if our own guys, why do we assume that the Iranians are dumber than we are? Why do we assume that they're incapable of going and stealing some or buying some on the black market? They have a very close relationship with Russia's atomic energy ministry. Very close. You know, Russia built the Bushehr reactor for them. They built the whole power plant. If they wanted to get some nuclear bomb fuel from Russia, they would not be making a cold call. They would have the contacts. They would know how to do it. And so I asked Purnell, in a world where anybody that wants a nuke can get a nuke, what kind of foreign policy do we have? And he said to me, you learn to be a good neighbor. You learn not to meddle. You learn not to go around invading countries like Iraq. And you don't spend decades in Afghanistan. And he said that, you know, you don't be a doormat. You don't let people push you around. You don't pay the dang geld. But also, you know, you're helpful and you're polite, and you don't stick your nose in the business that doesn't concern you. And he said to me, Bob, when was the last time anybody blew up a Swedish embassy? And I said, I don't think they ever have, not to my knowledge. And he said, that's right. And he said, you know why? Nobody hates the Swedes. And he said, there's a lot of deterrence in not being hated. And, of course, we're probably the most hated country in the world.
Yeah, well, we are hated, for sure. We have, it's a masterpiece of American foreign policy that we have managed to make ourselves hated in so many places, followed only closely by the British, and all of these countries have got good reason to hate us. Unfortunately, the Russians and the Chinese have done a much better job of winning friends and influencing people around the world, and that's unfortunate. We're going to take another break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the political issues, because We're in the middle of a presidential campaign. One candidate, the sitting president, Barack Obama, is not apparently inclined to support Israel in a strike on Iran. The other candidate, Mitt Romney, is inclined to do that, or has stated that he is inclined to do that. Whether or not he would really actually follow through on that once he was in office is another question. But these are the two sides right now. And the question I'm going to ask Bob is going to be very simple. Should we support them and help them take out Iranian nuclear facilities? We'll be right back.
The key, the mystery, the wonder. Now in a powerful new edition from Tarcher Penguin, Whitley Strieber updates the thrilling story with new revelations. Even the master of the key's most incredible predictions are coming true. We've discovered that there are many universes besides our own. He predicted this in 1998. He described how intelligent machines could be built. We're doing it now. If you love the key, you need this new edition. And if you've never read it before, don't miss this beautiful book filled with true wisdom and true revelations. The key is unique in this world. Graham Hancock says, consider its messages and you'll find it has worked a kind of magic on you. The Key. A selection of the Quality Paperback Book Club, the Book of the Month Club, and the One Spirit Book Club. Available in bookstores everywhere and online in all e-book format.
Get your copy with an autographed Whitley Strieber Collection bookplate from the UnknownCountry.com store. And do keep up with Whitley's Journal on UnknownCountry.com. There's a lot changing right now. Our world is changing beneath the surface in ways that are even more profound than the ways it's changing on the surface that we can see all around us. So stay with us. Times they are a-changin'.
Not a subscriber? You're missing too much. Click on the subscribe tab on UnknownCountry.com today.
UnknownCountry.com. Daily news at the edge. 16 million hits a month make it the largest website of its kind in the world. The home of Whitley and Ann Strieber, Dreamland, and so much more. Make us your homepage. Tell your friends. Spread the excitement that is UnknownCountry.com.
This is Whitley Strieber. I'm talking to Robert Gleason. Bob's new book, End of Days, is just wonderful. I loved it. A lot of other people did too. It's gotten terrific reviews, and for good reason. It is really, really well done. It's available now in paperback. You can also go to Bob's website, robertgleasonbooks.com, and as you can hear, Bob is not just a fiction writer sitting there dreaming things up. This is a man who is deeply embedded in the realities of the world around us, which is one of the exciting things about having him as a friend and as an editor, but it's also one of the exciting things about his writing. You are reading something that could really happen. This is no joke, and it's not a bunch of fictional smoke blowing either. This is grounded stuff, grounded in reality. End of Days is a learning experience as well as an absolutely terrific read. Bob, before we left the air, we were talking about the presidential candidates and their differing views on Iran. What do you think we should do, the United States?
Well, if you want to, Iran is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world. That they are, their economy and the livelihood of their people is 100% dependent on oil. They have no other exports. If you really wanted to, in 24 hours, you could completely destroy the Iranian economy with just straight-out bombing runs. You wouldn't need boots on the ground. You just go and you blow up their oil terminals, which are on the Persian Gulf. This is where they ship the oil into the tankers. They pump the oil into the tankers. You just blow all of those. There's half a dozen of them. You blow them up. You blow up their gasoline refineries. 25% of the refinery operation is located in the city of Abadan. We all know where that stuff is. We know that, you go blow up all their refineries. Overnight, literally overnight, in 24 hours, you bring the Iranian economy to a grinding halt. Now, the people, if you did this, the people that would suffer the most would be the common people. There wouldn't be any heating oil, there wouldn't be any gasoline for transportation, you wouldn't be able to ship food by trucks, you would just destroy, you would bring everything to a grinding halt, that they're infinitely more vulnerable to total destruction than any nation I know of, really. And Iran is completely aware of this, and they know that the kinds of retaliation that we could bring against them are monstrous. And my just general sense is that if we wanted to go in fact, if the Israelis somehow got in and bomb some of that stuff, we're going to get blamed for it. The Iranians of the Hezbollah will believe that we were in back of it. And if we went in and did it, boy, we'd really, they'd really be out for us. They can do all kinds of horrible things to us. And people forget that the Hezbollah was the preeminent terrorist organization for global terrorism, throughout the 1980s. And you would see the most unbelievable kind of terrorism against the United States. If you wanted to knock out Wall Street, and you didn't want to use a nuke, sure you could set a nuke off in front of Wall Street, but you could set up an EMP bomb, which you can build you can get the parts at Home Depot, and you can build it in your garage for under $1,500. It will knock out all the electricity and electronics for a radius of 2 miles, and you set it off right in front of the New York Stock Exchange. You could be looking at stuff like that, and that you could be looking at airlines being shot down. You could be looking at all kinds of cyber terrorism. That you could be looking. Right now I'm in my apartment in New York City, and we're 30 miles from Indian Point. One of the things we learned from Fukushima is how fantastically easy it is to melt down a nuclear power plant. You don't even have to enter the control room, and that's not very hard. These things are very poorly defended. They're not. They do not by Nuclear Regulatory Commission rules. They don't have to defend against more than 5 potential terrorists. And of course, as you know, in 9/11 there were supposed to be 20 terrorists, and they're not. That they just don't refuse to defend them. They're defended by private cops. Most of them don't have anything stronger than a 9mm pistol. That they're not allowed to carry automatic weapons, and most of them is against the law to carry automatic weapons. They're not soldiers. They're not in the army. They're very poorly defended, and you can. It's not that hard to break into them. It's not that they do tests, and the terrorists usually win 50% of the time. The terrorists go and take over the mock terrorists, the phony terrorists, take over the control room. And if you do take over the control room, all you got to do is lift the rods out of the cooling water for a couple of minutes, and they catch fire and melt down. The other way is you don't have to enter the control room. You just find the external cooling pumps, and you just blow them up. That's essentially what happened at Fukushima. The cooling pumps were knocked out, and then then everything melts down, including the stuff in the storage pools. They catch fire and they burn up all the water surrounding them, and then they melt down. It's not that hard to do that. That's the kind of stuff you'd suddenly be looking at. You'd have to evacuate the tri-state area in New York City. That's 20 million people. If somebody melted that down, you know how you evacuate 20 million people, Whitley? You can't.
You can't.
It's impossible.
No, it's absolutely impossible.
So then they all get radiation poisoning. There are consequences. The problem with going to war is, it's the law of unintended consequences. That's the whole thing about war. That the logic of war, the wisdom of war, is illogical, nonlinear, and paradoxical. That I go and hit you, and I think, well, I've taken Whitley out, and no, you're going to figure out some way of hitting me that I haven't thought of. That's always the way things go in war. It it's the asymmetrical responses. And you really want to go and hammer the hell out of Iran's nuclear program. What are going to be the consequences of that? How they have an enormous capacity to push back, and it's a funny thing is that there's no evidence that they actually really want a bomb. That they want to build they want the capacity to build one, but as I said, they're widely disliked. Once they own a bomb, and if anybody around the world said, and it's easy to get the bomb fuel, it's easy to get a bomb and set it off. Somebody sets a bomb off, would probably nuke them off the face of the earth just because they own a bomb. And the Iranians are acutely aware of that. They also realize their economy can be completely obliterated in less than 24 hours. I mean, they understand how incredibly vulnerable they are. And you really want to, open Pandora's box, go around, start, bombing the hell out of them. So
then you would say that Obama is right to not to support the Israelis in an attack, and Romney would make a mistake if he did it.
Oh yeah, it's the easy macho thing to do, and
in fact, he won't do it when the time comes. If he's president, he won't do it any more than Obama's going to do it. But it's basically an electioneering issue, isn't it?
You remember what Eisenhower said about preemptive war, preemptive strikes? He said these politicians that advocated. He said you put them in the front line, and you see how quickly they're going to, how quickly they're going to change their attitude. It's real easy for a guy like Romney to sit there in a big, comfortable office, comfortable chair, and send young men out to their death, and then not worry about the consequences. Was it Poe that said wisdom reckons on the unforeseen?
Well, it always worries me fooling around with countries like Iran and Iraq, because I think back in history, and the Roman Empire probably would not have collapsed had the Emperor Valens in 376 been in the process of a massive attack on Parthia, which is essentially Iran. And at that point, when Danube was almost denuded of troops, the Goths simply came across because they were being pressured by the Huns from behind them. Mm-hmm. And that began the end of the Roman Empire. 100 years later, it was gone.
Yeah.
And, it took us 1,000 years to recover from the collapse of the Roman Empire. And arguably, at 500 years beyond that, only in 1650 and 1700 AD did the economic activity of the Western world reach levels that it had been at in 300 AD. That's how fantastic that disaster was. So it always worries me. Bob Gleason, thank you so much for being with us on Dreamland. One of Bob Gleason's areas of expertise is 2012, and we're going to ask him, for subscribers, exactly where does he think this is right now? Because there is a confluence and remains a confluence of different things, radical changes that seem to be coming toward us from all different directions, economic, climactic, in terms of earth changes as well. A lot is actually happening. Does it culminate in 2012? In December of 2012? I find that difficult to believe, but Bob is a person with real expertise on this subject. So in the subscriber section, we're going to take another look at it and see just what he does think now that we are closing in on that date. After all, it's only a few months away. What does it mean now to somebody who has studied it deeply? Join us in the unknowncountry.com subscriber section. This has been Whitley Strieber's Dreamland. Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to Dreamland. Be sure to tune in again next week. Dreamland is brought to you by unknowncountry.com and our family of subscribers. Our news editor is Ann Strieber. Our science reporter is Linda Moulton Howe. Our webmaster is Daniel Stiegel. And I'm your Dreamland announcer, Brian Arnold. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.